Why the global South-South divide is largely debated now? What is the history of North-South divide? So, recently a seminar was conducted by the Observer Research Foundation in IIT Bombay, and it was addressed by the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. So, he addressed the speech in the topic of the South, strengthening the South-South cooperation. So, in his address, he mentioned a statement: the international financial systems is bankrupt. It is devised by the rich to serve the interest of the rich. So this statement reflects the international financial system, either the international financial system or the United Nations or the World Trade Organization, is largely dominated by the well developed countries, I mean the global north countries. So he raised concerns among the institutions which was largely dominated by the global north countries, developed countries, and he enhanced and pushed towards the global south countries to have a good cooperation and to fight against the north countries for their rights. So this was the issue. First we can see about what is the global north and global south, and what are the countries included in the global north and south. So basically some people misunderstood that the global north south divide was based on geographical factor, but it doesn't include the geographical factor. It was based on three factors. One is social, economical and political factors. Geographical factors is not included. So mainly the global north lies in the northern atmosphere. The global northern countries are largely developed. They are well developed countries, either in the industrial relations or in the living standard of the people. It was well developed. Basically the global north country include the European countries and even the Russia, and in the mainly from the south, Australia is included in the global north countries. But the global south include the countries from the continents like Latin America, Africa, Asia. So these countries are called global south. The global north and global south, it was an imaginary line, and it was termed by Willy Brandt. Willy Brandt was the former chancellor of Germany. So he termed basically on the developed countries and the south as developing and least developed countries. So basically the countries were characterized into the three during the Cold War. It was called first world countries, second world countries, third world countries. So the first world countries, which includes the US and its alliance, the European countries and the West, was called first world country. The second world country include the then Russia, I mean the USSR, the countries which supports the USSR is called second world countries, and the third world countries which adopted the non-alignment movement. They don't want to indulge in the west or east. They don't want to participate in two extremes. They want to approach the political stand as neutral. So these countries were included in the third world countries, and around 130 countries from Latin America, Africa, Asia and even from the Oceania, these countries, around 130 countries, constitute the third world countries. So these third world countries mostly is from the global south. They are least developed countries. They are largely exploited countries by the global northern countries, by the European powers. They are largely exploited by the European powers. So they are least developed countries. Basically we call the global south countries as LDC, least developed countries. Even India included in the global south countries. So the issue now is, like, again the debate of global south-south cooperation has emerged, because during the Cold War, the global south-south cooperation was at its peak. Even in the non-alignment movement was a good sign of global south-south cooperation. But after the disintegration of the USSR, after the Cold War, many countries began to align with either the US bloc or the Russia bloc, and even India take a stance and maintain a close relationship between the both blocs. And India has decided now the non-alignment movement was the role of non-alignment movement was decreased, and India doesn't show any keen attitude towards the non-alignment movement as of now. But during the coronavirus period, there were many issues happened which again enhanced the global south-south cooperation. For example, the institutional reforms, the World Trade Organization reforms. In the World Trade Organization, there is a TRIPS waiver, trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights. During the coronavirus period, like the India and South Africa has pushed the World Trade Organization to give a intellectual property waiver. It means like if consider if US they are inventing a vaccine on coronavirus vaccine, and if they invented a coronavirus vaccine, the South Africa and India proposed the TRIPS waiver. It will promote, like if the TRIPS waiver was accepted by the Western powers, then it will lead to the technology transfer, like the formula transfer of the medicines. So if the formula is transferred to the global south countries and the countries of the world, many countries can invent the coronavirus vaccine and it will save many lives. But the TRIPS waiver, the intellectual property waiver, was denied by the Western countries, and even the resolution was failed in the World Trade Organization. India and South Africa moved this resolution. So this moved India towards the global South-South cooperation, and now India is largely keen on developing the global South-South cooperation. And the long-standing issue is the United Nations Security Council reforms. The United Nations Security Council reforms was pushed by India and main African countries, Latin American countries. Even African countries, Latin American countries as a L69 conference. In the L69 conference, they pushed the United Nations Security Council to increase the seats from 15 to 25 for a more representation, because the African countries feel like they don't have a more representation and their concerns were not addressed in the United Nations Security Council, because African countries face many insurgencies at the domestic level. So they were pushing for the reforms, and India also pushing for the reforms. So the financial institutions or the United Nations or main institutions like World Bank is largely dominated, and the the Western countries, global northern countries, is applying towards hegemonic attitude towards these institutions. And another main institutional reforms lies in the World Bank. So actually I have said a quote in the beginning termed by the Antonio Guterres. It was devised by the rich, and so this kind of statement was given by hinting the role of the World Bank. Till now, the role of the World Bank is largely opaque. So there is no democratic the democracy involved in it. For example, in many terms, the World Bank and IMF, International Monetary Fund, is promoting the free liberal policies. I mean the free trade policies. They create some sort of benefits cushion to the private companies. So if the IMF or World Bank is going to give a loan package to certain countries, the countries should accept the certain principles which was put forth by the World Bank or IMF. So these countries are mainly supporting the privatization policies, and it promotes the private monopoly. So this kind of thing is exploiting the global south. Already the largely dominated countries, I mean the Western countries largely exploited during the colonialism. So now again the privatization is exploiting the southern global south. Another main important issue is climate justice. So in the previous climate summit which was held in Glasgow, many countries have committed to the net zero carbon emissions, especially the third world countries. To achieve this net zero carbon emission, they want some sort of incentives and the loan package and the aid from the developed countries, because developed countries right from the beginning during the first industrial revolution, they are injecting the carbon emissions into the atmosphere. So this was the reason now for the global warming. So now only the least developed countries in the global south, they were emitting the carbons, but these global north countries have been emitting for many centuries, and now they were pushing for the net zero emissions. So in 2009 Copenhagen, in the climate summit, the well developed countries, the global north countries, have committed for the climate fund. They will fund to the global south countries for the climate justice, and they will provide $100 billion American worth every year to the countries. But till now, for now around 12 year finished, but for even a 1 year they had not committed to the full 100 billion package. Now India have pushed in the recent COP summit which was held in Egypt. They have pushed for a trillion aid package, not a billion aid package, because now the issue of the climate finance have emerged a lot, because many countries have committed to the net zero carbon emissions. So now the issue has changed, so many countries want more aid package. So now India pushed for the trillion aid package. So it was hard for them developed countries to accept the proposal put forth by the developing countries. So in these kind of things, the institutional reforms or the climate justice or even the patent rights waiver, so now the need of the hour is the global south-south cooperation is needed. Now the issue of the non-alignment movement was also discussed during the conflict-ridden world. So the issue of global south-south cooperation have emerged. So India should play a major role in the global south-south cooperation. That's my opinion. So thank you.